Hello everyone and welcome again. Um, Today I would like to show you um, how to get the second part of the RealWorld Paint source code from GitHub and how to work with it. So there are two parts because RealWorld Designer and RealWorld Paint are supposed to be modular. It should be possible to build many applications with these components, and these components should be as independent as possible. So when you go to the GitHub page, I am using an anonymous window here because I don't want to be signed in. So if you go to github.com/vlasta_rw, and you should see these two repositories. RealWorld Core was added the last time, and I have already talked about it, and RealWorld Image was added later. And RealWorld Image contains most of the code that is related to working and editing images, working with and editing images. So I have both of these open. If you want to compile the source code yourself and maybe make modifications to it, you should download both of these. You can download them, for example, by going, for example, to the repository, and you should have a download zip here, or you can, if you have GitHub Desktop installed or Visual Studio installed, you should be able to automatically download these repositories. For example, Visual Studio should be able to download it for you. So as you can see, there are a lot of individual projects. Each of these is compiled into a separate .dll file, and here in the Visual Studio you can see the solution open. So if you download both of these repositories and unzip them, you should place them in the same folder, and the folder structure should be like this. You should have your folder for your project or whatever, and inside that there should be RealWorld-image folder, and inside that should be the content of this repository, and there should be, where is it? There should be another folder named RealWorld Core, and the repository of the content of the RealWorld Core repository should be in here. And this will then produce the compiled files here in the _bin folder that is on the same level as the RealWorld Core and RealWorld Image folders. Intermediate files are put in here, and some library files are put in here. So if you delete these two folders, there should not be a lot of wasted space. So That's not it. I wanted to check. Command, what is the lowest version of Visual Studio? This can be modified on. I'm not sure about the lowest, but just use the current one. I have used a very old version before and was locked to it, and I have made the transition to the new version of the Visual Studio. It took a lot of work. So this is the current version of the Community Edition. It's for Microsoft, it's free. Just download it and open it in the studio and everything should be working. You must first compile the RealWorld-core repository, and after that you can compile the RealWorld-image, because there are dependencies and they must be in the same folder, as I have talked about it before. So in this new repository, you can see we have the, let's say, basic image codecs. We have this. This is probably the most important project, RW document image raster, that contains the definition of a raster image and layered image. Here is a RW document image vector that handles the vector layers inside a layered image. This contains the definition of the various drawing tools like pencil, brush, ellipse, shape, and so on. You can see there is a lot of them. There are even some that are unfinished. Here are some. There is a version of artistic text, unfinished thing. It allows you to put a text on a curve. Maybe it will be finished one day. Yeah, dropper, fill, fluid fill, projected shadow, that's not actual anymore. So there are drawing tools, there are fill styles, basic, solid color, pattern fill, various gradients, and so on. So this is in the RW drawing. This handles EXIF extensions, and this is an image. This allows you to capture images from a webcam or a scanner if it supports the Windows Image Acquisition API. And this group of files from here, this is a sample image filter, as simple as possible, and it is a good starting point if you want to write your own image filter. This contains the majority of the image effects you can see in. You can see, for example, here. So, for example, raster image drop shadow is this one. So if you want to modify this, you go here, and these three files are related to the drop shadow effect. So these are the basic image effects here: blurring, bevel, color transformation, colorization, and so on. The second part of the image filters is here in the RW operation image photo. These are effects related mainly to modification of photographs, or mainly photographs. No, not artificial graphics like icons and so on. So you can see you can add watermark to your pictures, remove vignetting, remove noise, adjust hue, luminosity, saturation levels. Make your photo grayscale, adjust contrast automatically, and so on. And there are also some drawing tools inside here, like we saw in the RW drawing here. So here is a bubble tool, and the cloning stamp, a tool for cropping, removing of red eye, and this is the shapeshifter tool. So then we have operation print. This is a plugin that allows you to print images. This is the image effect that was not made by me. And these three files, these three projects contain the code for the user interface related to images. So for example, this drawing canvas is in, depending on, we are now editing vector layer, so this window is implemented in RW view image vector. So if you want to do some changes to how this is behaving, you go here. And okay, in RW view image vector there are also some operations that are related to vector images. It would be probably better if I separated that into, let's say, RW operation image vector, but there are not too many of them, so they are here for now. Let me quickly check comments. No new ones. So you should be able to modify the vast majority of RealWorld Paint, and what you will not find in these public repositories is Photoshop codec and Photoshop plugin integration, because Adobe SDK is needed for them, and I don't want to put that on GitHub because it's Adobe proprietary code. And you also won't find there the actual RealWorld Paint.exe file, because I want to keep that as a proprietary file, because it just contains the main icon of RealWorld Paint, the splash screen, the name itself of the application, and the default configuration. So I don't want to make this available, but instead in the RealWorld core repository I have added this _test RW editor project, and this serves as a sample or as a starting point for your own editor. So it's relatively short file. This is all that is needed to create a simple editor using the remainder of the published code, and I can actually run it. You will find it here, just this one. So you can see no splash screen. The name is test RW editor, but otherwise it looks practically the same, but no default layouts are installed. I have copied this layout here myself. You will have to configure the user interface layouts yourself, and instead of configuring, you may want to open RealWorld Paint or other application and export the layouts here. So it will be useful for you to actually configure the layout yourself to get familiar with the structure of the layout, because it's pretty complicated. Sorry, it's not in English. Let me switch it. So the layout, I have already talked about it. It contains everything. Every menu item is configurable and is part of the layout, and you can build it from the building blocks that are available, that are provided with all these other parts that are in the other projects here. So you can build your own editor using this as a starting point. And now, no new questions. Okay, I would like to do an experiment and actually show you how to modify part of the source code. So I have been thinking about what to do, what would be appropriate, what can we do in a couple of minutes, and I have been thinking about this thing. The user interface layout is very complicated, but it's occasionally useful to modify part of it, and it can be hard when you go here and to the configure layout screen to actually find what the things you want to modify. For that reason, there are some shortcuts into the configuration in various places. For example, when you click on a toolbar, it will display this menu with one item, configure toolbar, and when you click on it, it will actually show you a part of the whole configuration of the user interface layout that is related just to this one toolbar. And except for toolbars, it's also available for these tabs. So this configuration is related to this one editing tab. You can see that it looks simple, but it's actually pretty complicated because it needs to be able to show different things depending whether we are editing a raster image or a vector image, or we are editing a layer style like this outer shadow that's here. We can also edit a 3D layer in some applications, templated image, let's not talk about it, that's not complete. And we are able to handle layer groups. So just this configuration of this one panel is pretty complicated. So another thing that we can configure is, for example, this window under the toolbar, or this window to the left of the splitter bar here, or to the right of the splitter bar. So for example, it would be nice if I clicked on this toolbar tag, and then in addition to have the configure toolbar command here, it would be nice to have, for example, configure sub window. And if I click this new item, then it will show me the configuration of this, or configure internal window, or we may be able to find a different name for it. And it will show the configuration for just this raster editor in this case. If I clicked here, and if we had configure internal window here, or configure window, then it will show the configuration of this. So let's try to add this functionality. So I know that the toolbars you see here are a type of view, and the code should be in RW Designer Core. It should be here in toolbar files. So Designer View toolbar, and let's look at this file. This notification code on right click looks like the things we are interested in. So let's go to the implementation of this handler, and let's look for this identifier. And you can see that it's the configure toolbar string, and here we are creating the menu we are displaying when we right click on the toolbar, this one, and we are adding a single item to it that is called configure toolbar. So this is the older version of how to get multi-language strings into RealWorld Designer. So let me use the newer version that looks differently. And here we can type, let's call it configure window. And we want to, this will translate this, if someone has translated the expression configure window into the language that is currently active, then this call here will translate this configure window command, and we will put it into a variable. Let's call it like this. We are using, this is a type of a string variable that is used here due to historical reasons. So maybe I should show you this thing. It is possible to put multiple languages here. This is the identifier of the English language. This is identifier of the Czech language, and my native language is Czech. So I can put multiple languages here if I want to. So this is how configure window is written in Czech. And so this command will put the correct expression into this variable, and let's add this to our menu. I don't remember what this does. This is an identifier, so we want another identifier for this item. We have no icon and no extra flags, so maybe just to be sure, let's do this, close this window and compile this DLL. And the only thing we have done so far is to add this expression to the menu. We have not actually implemented the thing that will actually perform the command. So it succeeded. So let's use this test application instead of another one. So now I have clicked here and you can see our new command here. So if I click on it, it's not what we expected. So it worked, it did the same thing as this configure toolbar. So let's look at this code. We are actually, this is actually a Windows function that shows the menu, puts it on the screen, and then returns to us the selected item. And you can see here that if any item was selected, either this one or the two, then we are performing this piece of code. So we want to actually change this, and we want to perform this piece of code only when the first item was selected. So because this shows us the configuration dialog for the toolbar itself. And we should actually use something better than this 1 or 2, but this is not how coding should look like. We shouldn't be using this many years old system, I would say, but whatever. Here is one, it's okay, it's manageable, it's on the same screen. It's not nice, but whatever. So here we should put the code that would actually configure the window. And now I will have to actually remember or find out how to do that. So let's first look on what is happening when we are configuring the toolbar. We are taking a part of the whole configuration and then we are displaying a window, and if the user clicks OK, then we are copying the modified configuration that he has modified inside the window. Back into the global configuration, it looks like. So we should be doing something similar. First we must look at what is this. This is a identifier of the toolbar we have clicked. So let's go here. Here is a list of the sub items of the configuration of this whole view. Toolbar name, toolbar ID. We probably are interested in this part because that would be the identifier of the window. So this one, let's copy this part. We want to call it, for example, view configuration, and from the global config of our window we want to get the subconfig for the view. We probably want to duplicate that as we are doing here. We should not call it commands because it's, let's call it duplicated view config frame dialog. If I remembered what this what this does. Can we reuse this or no? So we should probably look find get icon layout. What is this? Yeah, that's an icon for the caption probably. Commands. Let me go there once more. Caption of the window template. Okay, let's copy this line, and we will see what happens. So we won't do anything if the user clicks OK, but we will at least show a window containing something. So compile this. You can post question related to this or related to anything else if you want to. It succeeded. So let's look what happens when we click on this configure window item. It doesn't seem to be layered image. It still looks like it is the same. That I don't like this. Do we have left align return command? Maybe it doesn't work, so let's debug it. Let's debug it. This is usually faster to just attach it instead of starting here, because I don't know why. So we have, what is the breakpoint currently? Not it. That's strange. So did it actually compile correctly? Oh, we have an extra block end here, so that it wasn't compiled a bit. So we were using the previous incorrect DLL. So now, okay, we see a configuration dialog, and so don't mind this icon and the configure toolbar. We have copied that. We will have to change this, but inside is something else than what we see if we click on configure toolbar. We have here a command list for these individual buttons, but when we click on configure window, we see the configuration of this three how to say it, this is a tree view, but this is this kind of view that lists items one under the other in a hierarchical structure. So we can configure its parameters, and you can see that it has also a list of commands inside, and these are commands that appear when you right click here on this window. So we can now see this configuration, but if we change it, nothing will happen, because we are doing nothing when the user clicks OK, and we are working with a copy of the configuration. So if the user does some changes and confirms them, we should copy them to the original. So we should probably do something like copy. But this may not be enough, because we would actually want to refresh the actual view. That may be a bit more complicated. Let me look here. So the view should be held in this variable. That's it. So this creates the internal view, so we should probably copy this part and so this we will remember this part. Okay. So let's get back here. So let's try it. If well, the first thing we want to do is to destroy the old window. And I will have to find it again. So we want to then create the view again. We would have to get this. Actually, is this really necessary? Probably yes. Yeah. So we need to read the ID of the view we want to create. From the configuration into this C view ID value. This will create the updated version of the view, but okay, let's we'll have to do more changes, but let's try it as it is now. Let me check. There are questions, no questions. So expect that it will not look nice, but let's configure this window, and for example let's switch this from thumbnails to small icons. And what happened? It disappeared initially because it probably was not created in the right place, but when I resized it, it was placed correctly, and you can see now that instead of thumbnails we have just these icons here. So it worked, but we should create the new window in the right position. So we would possibly want to, okay, this gets us the area of the whole window, and we probably want to to get the actual area of the old window. So you won't get this is old Windows code, so it may look strange to you, but it just returns the rectangle in screen coordinates of the window we will be destroying right now, of the actual window we are recreating. And we should convert these coordinates to relative coordinates from the screen coordinates to the coordinates relative to our window. Is this Windows command. So anything else? I'm assuming here that it worked. If maybe we should do let's try it like this. So it should now be in the correct place and it should be visible. So let's configure, let's return it back to thumbnails, and it seems to be working. So we have now modified the we should do some more things, because still here we can see configure toolbar and it's not configuring toolbar. We could even create a different dialog, not reuse the one we are using for the toolbar configuration. We may want to actually allow the user to place a different type of window here. We are currently allowing them to only reconfigure the parameters of this window. Let me show you. I will now configure this panel, and when we click on this in this toolbar, then we are actually showing the user this part of the configuration, and when we click on the configure window, we are showing to the user this part, but we are not allowing them to actually pick a different view. You can see the structure -3 cannot be selected there. It would be a bit more complicated if we wanted to allow this. But anyway, we have modified the source code of RealWorld Paint, and every tool, instead of just configure toolbar, we will have configure window we will see it every time we click on the toolbar. When I click here, you can see that I can reconfigure this part. So I'm not sure whether you find when I click here, you can see that I can actually reconfigure this part, and this is a what is this actually? Configuration of what happens. It's empty, but this is the as a library of items, and you can actually configure using that JavaScript what happens when you double click an item. There are no items here, but that's what we just saw. So if we wanted to make this nicer, then we would replace this. I don't want to do it actually, but let's do it. We'll have to go here to the string table, configure. Let's call it find this configure. I want to get rid of this and have all these strings inside the source code, as you saw a minute ago. Configure toolbar, here it is. Do we have something? Configure window. That will be the caption of the dialog, and there's a temporary thing. So we have created this string, and let's use configure window. Is that the right? Okay. Yeah, we have now the configure window here. I will leave this old icon here because it's an icon for layout configuration, so it applies to windows or toolbars or whatever. So this is not nice what we have done here, but we have added some, let's say, 25 lines of code, and we have added this functionality to all RealWorld application. Every place that in every application we can now do this. And if I had more time, maybe next time, I would have, for example, also modified this splitter view. When you can sometimes you can resize these, and wouldn't it be nice if you could right click here and similar menu would pop up, and it would allow you to, for example, lock this panel, the width of the panel, so it won't be resizable again, or it would allow you to configure the left part or the right part of the window. We might do this next time. It should be similarly difficult. Okay, let me check if there are questions. There seems to be no questions, and so I will give you a minute if you have question. type it now, or at least type I have questions and then type it. Otherwise, we will finish today's stream. Is there anything else new? I will probably focus on modifying the web in the upcoming weeks, and I'm also considering doing more live coding session if you like it, and possibly I could show you how to create a new editor, and maybe we could try to do a font editor, but that may be too difficult. So let me know what you think about that idea. Maybe it would be better to just focus on improving the image editing capabilities and so on. So there doesn't seem to be any questions. If any one of you is watching this later from the recording, you can type your questions under the video. So I think that is all. So have a good weekend, end of the weekend, evening or morning or whatever. And goodbye. See you again in a couple of weeks.